Let's kick off. This is our July meeting of the Portland Urban Beekeepers. I think people are still trickling in, but we're getting kind of low attendance now as the Zoom meetings progress. Tonight we have two speakers. We have Jana, who's our vice president, going to give us a little talk on the OSU Master Beekeeper Scholarship. So every year we give out, I think we give out 3 scholarships to people to attend the OSU Master Beekeeper program or the Master of Melitology program. And then she's going to give a little talk on that. And then we have our main speaker, Cassie, who's from the Washington State Department of Agriculture, going to be talking about the Asian giant hornet. So that'll be interesting to hear an update on that. Going to give a quick spiel on who we are and everything for people who might not be members, but please come and support this. We are Portland-based beekeeping club. Membership includes the swarm list, which we've got quite a few calls this year. Through that 190 plus so far. And we also have access to the Bee Buddy program, which allows you additional social interaction and opportunities outside of these monthly meetings where you can meet people around you, either mentors or other beginning beekeepers, and learn from them and go to their apiaries and have them come to yours. And it's a good way to learn beekeeping hands-on. We also have bee days at the apiary. So every other Sunday, we go out to Green Acres and we do some bee inspections and mite washes and all sorts of fun stuff out there. So we were just out there last weekend and had a pretty big crowd out there. We have a library, equipment rental. You can post on our website for the classifieds. And then at the end of the year, we do donate a large chunk of the money that we gather every year to bee research. The last year we donated 20,000. I don't think we'll get up to that this year, but we'll get pretty close. So only $25 for the year. Like I said, Bee Buddy program, it's a good way for you to visualize who's around you, and you're able to click on the little dots and it tells you if they're a learner or a mentor and what type of things they're looking to learn or what they're looking to mentor on. And it's a great way to connect with people around you. So you can go to the website, click on resources, Bee Buddy map, and then this little map pops up and you go from there. You can also sign up there. Bee School has concluded for the year, but we did record all the sessions. So if you are interested in watching any of them because you don't have bees yet and maybe you're prepping for next season already, or you're still getting going this season and you want to learn, Susie, who's on the board, she's, I don't know, communicator extraordinaire. She hosts these every year. So I think it's the 2nd or 3rd year, and it's $45 for the 4 classes. They're 2 hours each. They're intro to beekeeping, spring management, honey harvesting, and then the fall and winter management, which is still coming up. So bee days at the apiary, like I said, we just had one on last Sunday, and we're going to have one 2 Sundays from now. So hopefully the weather is warmer and we can do some sugar shake to show how to do that, to check for mites. And we'll just be doing more inspections of the hives. We added supers last Sunday, so we'll probably be checking on those, make sure everything looks good there. And yeah, so that's 10 to noon at Green Acres. You can contact apiary or vice president at portlandurbanbeekeepers.org if you want more information. This is just a map showing it because it's a little confusing if you've never been there, but there's a park next to it, Cathedral Park. You park there and then you just walk around here and you'll come right down into this area. You'll see a bunch of people in bee suits there, and then we just walk over and hang out with the bees for a few hours. So those 2 things we'll post on the website, and then we send it out a day or 2 before, just to remind everybody. We have our upcoming speakers tonight. So we have Cassie tonight. In August, we have Randy Oliver talking about his OAV research update, which will be pretty interesting. September, we're looking at Dewey and Joe and Andy talking about winterization. So it's a good time of the year to be looking forward into the future. And then in October, we have somebody from Xerxes Society. So that'll be really interesting. And then November, I think we're going to look at honey harvesting and honey processing. So we'll set that up soon. If you have any other speaker suggestions into the end of this year or in the next year as well, just shoot us an email and we're happy to help schedule those people. So I will pass it over to Cassie in a moment, but let's have Jana go first on the update from the OSU Master Beekeeping Scholarship. We can't hear you, Janet, if you're talking.
Sorry. Okay. Okay, I don't know what's going on with my computer, but are you guys seeing my screen? What are you seeing?
We can see your Google Slides, but not in presentation mode.
Okay, let me figure that out. Sorry, it's my first time doing this.
No problem.
What do I? Give me the quick lowdown on how to do that.
The top right, it's a slideshow next
Oh,
to
got
that
it.
yellow share button. There you go.
Oh, there we go. Okay, thanks for being patient, everyone.
Perfect.
Okay, so I'm just going to first give you a little overview on the Oregon Master Beekeeper program at the apprentice level, which is what I just completed. It's a super cool program. It's all online. There's 9 modules or lectures that you complete. There's quizzes just for your own knowledge of what you learned or what you still need to get up to speed on. They're not graded, so it's just, did you do it? There's a textbook to get. You earn education points by doing outside things, like coming to one of these meetings is an education point because you're hearing from experts in the bee field, and so you get 1 education point just for coming to a meeting that you've normally been coming to. Then you need to have 4 field experiences with a mentor if you are lucky enough in your first year to get assigned to a mentor. And you submit 4 colony log entries that span a 12-month period of time so that they can see that you've been in a hive and seen all the different seasons. And then there's a really easy written exam, open book, no time limit. You can take months to do it if you want. I have to just say, I learned so much from it. It's a really amazing program, and you get access to lots of experts. And so it's really, really beneficial. There's a program called Getting Started. And if you don't get assigned a mentor in the first year, you just do all the book work, everything that's listed up there, except for the field experience with the mentor. And then the next year, when you get assigned a mentor, all you have to do is that field experience part. And so it's a really amazing program. I highly recommend it to anyone who might even be remotely thinking about it. Portland Urban Beekeepers is really generous, and they offer a scholarship. The enrollment fee was $300. And I applied for the scholarship. Applications go out in December. And you just answer a few short questions, and I was actually the only one who applied for the scholarship this year, so I got it. So it's pretty easy. And in return for the scholarship, Portland Urban Beekeepers asks that you represent them and do some kind of bee education out in the community, whether that might be sitting at the state fair booth, going to a classroom, maybe giving a presentation at the apiary. There's lots of different ways that you could fulfill this. It's not like you have to spend hours and hours or days and days doing one activity. It can just be a simple, go to a classroom and take an observation hive or something, which is what I did. And it was really, really fun. So I did tons of things with kids this year because I just really love working with kids. And it was super fun for me to take the observation hive and share a lot of information with them. So this is just kind of a little outline of what I did. And if anybody wants to, whether you're applying for the scholarship or not, if you just want to get involved with kids and bees, and you want to sort of find out what I put together and the resources that I was able to find for it, just email me and at vicepresident@portlandurbanbeekeepers.org, and I'm happy to share anything with you that I have. So I decided to share some videos of the kids really enjoying, or not videos, just pictures of the kids enjoying things. We saw queen, and we saw drones and workers and honey and all kinds of stuff. And they just had so much fun with it. It was really a great time. There I am in my bee suit reading a book to them. And then this was a game I played with them, teaching them how bees pollinate different flowers and then bring the pollen back to their hive. And they were kindergartners, so I don't know that they really got a lot of scientific information out of it, but they had a really great time getting chalk all over their fingers and moving it around. So that's all I have. If anyone has any questions about the Master Beekeeper program or anything, I'd be happy to answer them. If you don't want to ask them here, feel free to email me, and I'll either call you or email you back or whatever too.
Cool. Thank you. How many years is it again? 4 years? 3 years?
Well, there's 3 levels to the Master Beekeeper program. 4 if you don't get assigned a mentor the first year. So there's apprentice, journey, and master. If you've been keeping bees already for a long period of time, the journey level would go faster, but you have to be keeping bees for 3 consecutive years in order to pass the journey level. And so, so it's not just necessarily a 3-year program because there's time periods for each stage. If you're someone who's already been keeping bees for 12 years or, whatever, you can probably pass through relatively quickly because it's just the bookwork part. But like I'm in the journey level now, and there's like part of it is going and doing a field test in their apiary, and you also do some stuff in their lab to pass out of it. So I'm really looking forward to those 2 things. I think going to the lab and doing stuff in their lab is going to be amazing.
That's cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, so that's going to be open again in December from the club. As far as anybody who might want to join, it's essentially free membership if you perform the 3 activities for the club, and then we reimburse you the $300. So we'll send out emails when that opens up again. Any other questions before we move on to Cassie? Awesome. All right, Cassie, you are up.
All right. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. We're obviously going to talk about an interesting, controversial subject. No, just kidding. That's past. So I'm going to, as I go through the PowerPoint, I'm going to stop in sections, let you ask questions over what I go over, kind of in 3 parts. I'll first go over the Asian giant hornet. Then I'll talk to you about what WSDA does. And kind of at the end, we'll go over some other flying and stinging insects you might see. As beekeepers, you're already going to know some of them, so it's not going to be a big deal, but that's usually kind of interesting for some people. So I work for, I just need to go to slideshow mode. I'm not at my regular workstation. Okay, so normally I do outreach for the Department of Agriculture, primarily for the pest program. So I cover a lot of invasive species, but I usually stick to hot topics because, well, that's what we want to work on and search with first. So currently it's called the Asian giant hornet. ESA is voting on changing its name right now. There's been a couple different submissions. So within the next few weeks, I'm sure you'll be hearing about its name being changed. Asian giant hornet was just kind of a common name, but never one that the ESA had exactly decided on. So I'm going to refer to it as Vespa mandarina and Asian giant hornet until that changes. But before we got there, right, everyone knows it as, what's the famous nickname? Murder hornet, right? Okay, so it came to us from the New York Times. When it was first discovered in the United States in December of 2019, they published that first article, Asian giant hornet invasions threatened honeybees in the Pacific Northwest. That gained a lot of ground and traction. So they did some talking to overseas beekeepers, research scientists, following WSDA around, and they came up with that term murder hornets. Right. It also goes by other nicknames like yak killer hornet, giant sparrow bee, but that's the one everyone loved and ran with. Really have turned it around into people knowing that they don't typically murder people, but they get that from murdering the honeybees, right? So that's pretty good. But what are they? So these are the largest hornet in the world, and adults range between 1.5 to 2 inches in length. So that's kind of going to be a distinguishing feature, but there's two other things to really look for that it'll set aside from other insects we see. So I have a big round circle around what part of its body there. Its head, okay? Because the difference being is it's as big and as wide as its body, and that's going to set it apart from other things. It'd be like us having a giant pumpkin, you know, from shoulder to shoulder. It's always going to be characterized as that bright orange yellow color. It's always going to be bright yellow orange because if you see a school bus, you might say it's orange, you might say it's yellow, and they can kind of distinctually flux a little bit depending on where in Asia they're coming out of, okay? The other distinguishing feature are those striping bands going across its abdomen. They're going to be kind of uniform, lateral, and horizontal across, kind of begin the same width and size. If you think about a yellow jacket, which I'll show you pictures of it later, they'll drop down or they'll have circles and teardrops, etc. So remember the head and the uniform lateral bands. Throughout this PowerPoint, I'm going to talk about kind of the things that we worry when it comes to us, because it obviously threatens our honeybees, and those are a great pollinator, as well as just kind of an economy and an infrastructure in the United States. Because they can sting us, it's going to threaten human health. And obviously, if we lose a bunch of our pollinators, we're going to be hungry. So agriculture is a huge deciding factor in these. So one of the things I do want to talk about, and I will put this link in the chat box for you at the end if you guys would like to see it. So this is the first climatic study that came out regarding the potential spread of the Asian giant hornet. And if it is established in the United States, where can it take itself to by flying on its own, based solely off weather factors, right? So on this map, you'll see areas of red and yellow. Great places for the hornet to go. Then you kind of see as we move from the west coast to the east coast, that blue murky swamp pond color. Based off the weather patterns, that's not super ideal for the hornet. And then as you see, we get closer to the east coast, great for it once again. What this basically tells us is that's a lot of land for the hornet to fly over, some mountains it has to cross on its own. So for it to spread from this coast to that coast, likely it would need to hitchhike, be brought over or something. Now, I'm not saying that there's not pockets in between there that it could definitely survive, but it hitchhiked its way, or it's got here some way from Asia, so it's definitely capable, as well as any invasive species capable of hitchhiking itself across. Since this study came out, there has been at least 3 studies that you can also view kind of dictating the same kind of data. There is another one that might still be under review, but it might be done by now. So if you're interested in reading this, I can post that in the chat box later. All right, there's 2 things I really want you to take away. One, I'm going to talk about its nesting habits, right? And then I'm going to talk about its life cycle. This will help you understand the goal of eradication, complete removal of the hornets, as well as why WSDA does what we do during certain times of the year. So over in Asia and its native range, these hornets are actually ground nesters. So what they do is they will dig, they'll make one entrance into the ground, and then they'll actually excavate that area, and they'll make 2 to 3 feet wide combs and stack them on top of each other. So these nests do house hundreds and hundreds of hornets. Now, the other thing that the research says, which there's really only about 2 studies on these hornets ever done, okay, does say that about 15 to 18% of the time, they will nest in hollowed out trees. That's what we're observing here in Washington and Whatcom County. You can see the picture here. You can see the nest combs laid out on the top left, and then you can see how they stacked them up in the tree, okay? These nests are just 1 year. Okay, and then the hornets, they can reuse those cells in the combs if they would like to that year, but there'll be a new nest next year and that won't be reused. You see the emerging hornet on the bottom left. Okay, those white marshmallow looking things are called cap cells. When the hornet is its full adult size, it's going to rub and eat that cap cell away and emerge from the nest. So anytime you see an Asian giant hornet, it's going to be its full adult size. There's going to be no such thing as a baby Asian giant hornet. So if you see something really, really small, not likely a hornet. The last thing I have to mention about the nests is Asian giant hornets are typically not aggressive towards humans because they don't have any predators, right? So they don't have to look behind their back and worry. They just want to fly around and eat bugs. So they don't really care about us, but if someone comes upon a nest, accidentally stumbles, gets too close, their chances of being stung are very real, and typically they will swarm that person. And I don't really think you want to get stung, right? Here's a picture of Asian giant hornets entering and leaving the nest. This was actually the first nest found in 2021. Okay, so the second nest in the United States. Okay, I'm going to talk about the life cycle, and then I'll pause and you guys can ask questions then. You can throw them in the chat box at any time. So I'm spending a minute on this graphic, starting at the top and moving in a clockwise position. So what season is it? Super cold, things are sleeping, snow can sometimes fall on the ground. Winter, okay, so we're going to be talking about winter first. In the winter, the only thing that will be alive are new queens. The workers, they'll be dead, and the males will be dead as well as that original founding queen. So the new queens will be overwintering. They'll dig themselves into the soil. They'll find somewhere sheltered to live. And then as temperatures start to warm up and we leave winter, what season do we end up in? Spring. So that's when those queens will emerge. And if they successfully mated, they'll go find a spot to build their new nest. Now, remember, that's typically going to be in the ground, but it can also be in a tree cavity, okay? So once they start to build their nest, it's going to be really small. After they have a couple workers in that nest, the queen's going to stay inside the nest, and then the workers are going to go out and work. Right? They're going to bring back insects and beat and mashed up balls to eat and keep on expanding that nest. So as we kind of leave the spring and we have enough workers, what season do we get into? What are we now?
Summer.
Well, we're in summer, but that's okay. So we're in the summer, and that's when we're going to start to see the workers if a population's present, because that's when there's enough of them out flying around. Okay. They're eating individual insects throughout their entire life, even a honeybee here and there, and coming back. As we leave that fall time, right? Or as we leave this summer, what season do we get into? Fall, okay. And on my timeline, what color is that fall season? It's red, okay. And that's for two reasons. When we get into the fall, that queen has matured, the colony's matured. So instead of laying workers, she's going to start laying new queens and new males. Yes, she lays both of them. Now, queens and males are larger than the workers. Because they're larger, that colony is going to need more protein in their diet. And what is that good one-stop shop source for a lot of food? Your beehives, your apiaries, right? So it's red because there's new queens and males. They need more food because there's new queens and males. And what else do new queens need? New potential nests next year, right? So that's why it starts in the fall time. We really start to worry about finding all the nests and removing them. If we remove them before that fall time, before the queens emerge, then there's not going to be nests moving forth next year, okay? Then as fall starts to end, well, actually, once the queens and the males come out of that same nest, they mate very close to the nest, then the males die, and then the queens will fly off to overwinter. Workers also, their life cycle is super short. I think it's on average about 2 weeks. So they'll all be dead in the winter as well. And then that founding queen that started that nest, she'll also be dead. And then after winter's over, the new queens, if they mated, will begin to go, etc. Last 2 points I'm going to talk about before I stop is there isn't a whole lot of research done behind the Asian giant hornets. It'd be like us studying the crap out of yellow jackets. They're native in Asia. They've lived and interacted with other species. Over here, they're not native, so they threaten and impact us different, right? There's no certainty to how far the queens can fly themselves or disperse. So we don't know how far they could come out of their original founding nest and take themselves to start a new nest. So that's one of the things that makes it critical in tracking Asian giant hornets. But the second thing that we do know is we know not all queens successfully mate and not all queens successfully make it through the winter. So a nest that could have potentially 100 queens that pop out of it, 200 queens would only have maybe 15 to 20 that successfully, maybe 15 to 30 that successfully move forward. But that's still exponential growth for over multiple years. Okay, so if there are questions right now, it's a great time to ask them. And I'm going to go ahead and now actually too in the chat box, go ahead and post those links to those studies. Okay, so there's a question in the chat box that reads, what methods are used to eradicate the Asian giant hornet nests, manual removal or insecticide application? I'm going to ask that we pause and hold on this question because I will talk about it actually. In their native range, people typically physically remove them, but I'll tell you why then as well. We physically remove them here, I guess, but I'll tell you in detail how it happens. And if you have a question, feel free to unmute yourself.
How large do you think the infestation is at this point?
Unfortunately, that's completely unknown. I can tell you that in a lot of the times people don't know that in British Columbia, that was the first time. Sorry, let me get back to where I was. In British Columbia, actually in 2019, they did find a nest over in Nanaimo, so across the water, and they removed it and have not had any confirmations of the hornet since then. So actually in 2019, there was an introduction into Nanaimo and an introduction over to us in the United States. And we were able to analyze the DNA between those hornets and learn that they were not actually from the same introduction, right? Those hornets were separately different. But that's kind of just showing that it is possible to eradicate the hornets. Unfortunately, we just don't know how many were here, how many have made it out of the nests. I'll tell you a little bit more on what we found last year and what that could mean though, as we move forward. Oops. There's a question in the chat box asking if the hornets have any of the same parasites and or diseases as honeybees, like varroa mites and etc. As far as parasites, I don't know the answer to that. I can tell you that they don't have any predators that really eat them. There might be like one bird over in Asia that eats them. The thing that might harm the Asian giant hornets and repopulating is kind of this idea of for lack of a better terms, bottleneck theory, right? Remember that the queen and the male are being produced from the same nest. So there is always a chance that the males being produced out of that nest are actually infertile. So the queens that they mate moving forth won't be able to produce any nests. Or if the queen does produce a nest, the queens and male, there won't be queens coming out of that forward. So that's something that might harm them from moving forward, but it's been studied in other hornets. So there's also the Asian hornet that's invading Europe. And that's one of the ideas that was supposed to stop it from kind of expanding, and it's doing pretty dang well over there despite that. Okay. Well, if you have questions, continue to put them in, but I'm going to keep us trucking along. So in this timeline, right, I told you that fall time was the danger zone. New queens and males, they're hungry. And what are they eating? They're eating, they could go after your apiaries and eat your honeybees, right? So here's how that happens. I'm sure you've already learned about it, but typically throughout their life, they're going to live in that first phase, which is the hunting phase. The hornet's going to fly around, nab an individual insect, mash it up into a bee ball, and bring it back to feed their young, right? They have to rip off the wings, the legs. They just want that meaty part, okay? If the hornets find something that they want to go after, they will actually mark it with a pheromone. And do we all know what a pheromone is? It's a scent or a smell, right? And that's going to stay there until the hornets decide, let's go after it. So then its friends will come back, okay? Your poor little honeybees are going to fly out to try to protect themselves. The hornets are actually going to grab the adults and systematically just chop off all their heads and drop their bodies. So all these dead honeybees are going to be laying outside. And that's called the slaughter phase. Once those adults are taken care of and out of the way, they're going to go into the hive and occupy it. And actually, now it's theirs, okay? And what they don't want the honey. They don't touch it and use it. They want your little baby bees. They want the pupae and the larvae, and they want to take it back to feed it to their young, because that's easy, one-stop shop source for a lot of meat, okay? As beekeepers, right, if you come across this happening, if you're not able to stop them before they get into that slaughter phase, that remember now it's theirs. So your chances of getting stung are going to be very real. There's going to be multiple hornets to sting you, and your beekeeping suits are not thick enough to keep you safe from the stinger because their stinger is just too long. It's about 1/4 of an inch. So if this is ever happening, don't go near it. But remember, they're only found in the northwest corner of Washington right now. Okay. The next thing that I usually get asked is, well, how do they have honeybees over in Asia? One of the things that they do over in Asia, Japan, Korea, is Taiwan even, instead of keeping multiple bee boxes together, they keep 5 bee boxes kind of scattered in a 20-feet area. That way, if they see the hornets coming after one, maybe they're able to stop it before they can mark the rest of the hives. Okay, so that's one thing. The other thing, a lot of us over here keep European honeybees. And what kind of honeybees do you think they have over in Asia? Japanese honeybees, right? So Japanese honeybees are native to Asia as well as the hornets. So that they have lived and evolved and grown with the hornets over multiple years, centuries, etc. So the Japanese honeybees have a slight defense mechanism against the hornet. So that hornet tries to go to that hive. Remember, the honeybees fly out to protect themselves, and they actually create a bee ball around the hornet, buzzing and warming their body temperatures up just enough to essentially cook that hornet alive. It drops to the ground and dies. If they're able to do this before it can mark that hive, right, they can be scot-free. Now, obviously, doing all that work, they might lose some of their workers, some of their protectors, etc. But not everything's going to get wiped out and beheaded. So then people ask me, well, why don't we bring Japanese honeybees over here? What are those things that you all love to deal with? They start with a little and ends in a ites. Right. Okay. So we don't want those mites of the Japanese honeybees coming over here because it's going to really make our honeybees sick, and you guys are going to have one more problem to deal with. Okay. It's called the Tropolaelaps mite. The other thing that's different in Asia and here is that remember, they're a native species. Way back when, they were a great source of protein, and now it's kind of cultivated into the hornet pupae and larvae, considered being a delicacy. So just like your honeybee's pupae and larvae lives in the hive, well, where do you think their pupae and larvae lives? Right, in that colony. So to get this, someone has to physically harvest that colony, and remember, that's super dangerous. So that's one of the reasons that it makes it a delicacy. The other reason is to find it, you want to find it in the fall time when it's super big. So timing makes it a delicacy too. And it's just been a cultural tradition since way back when. People fry it up and eat it just like you see here. They'll also do hornets and alcohol, like we know people do tequila and the worm, right? A bunch of athletes over there will consume energy drinks with different hornet parts and things in them, with the idea that'll make them perform better. So just a couple differences between the hornets there versus the hornets here, but naturally it's a native species. It's been there forever and everything's always interacted with it. Yes, it is a danger a lot of the times to workers, especially if people stumble upon hives. 10 people typically die each year from stings. Some of those people are actively harvesting the hives. Sometimes it's workers in fields that just have a really bad day. One sting from a hornet, you're usually okay. Multiple stings is when you're going to see a doctor, and I'll talk about that more later. But before I move forward and I talk about kind of what WSDA has done and what we're doing and what we found, quick kind of icebreaker question for you. Would you rather be stung by an Asian hornet, or would you rather eat an Asian giant hornet? And go ahead and post those in the chat box or however you'd like to do it. Would you rather be stung, or would you rather eat an Asian giant hornet? So I'm seeing some people don't know. I'm seeing some people might try it fried, and no one really wants to get stung. All right, so you guys are, I'm assuming you all are kind of somewhere in Portland, somewhere in Oregon, but let's go drive up straight north, right up I-5 to essentially Canada. Okay, and that's where this map is going to be based off of. So right on the North Canada border, right by the water, is kind of the area of Blaine, Bellingham, Linden, Birch Bay. It's going to be on this map. This black line is the Canada border. Going south from the black line is going to be about 30 miles, essentially the same width across, okay? So all the dots you see are confirmed sightings of Asian giant hornets. And you can see the ones up in Canada as well. Okay, the stars are nests that we have removed. So we've removed 4 nests over the last 2 years. Oh, okay. So what we do is we ask people to report sightings to us. We actively hang bottle traps. I'll show you pictures of them to survey for the hornets. And what the survey does is if the hornets fly into these traps, then we have a detection. And I'm going to show you how we figure out how we're going to survey. So what we're going to do is we're going to take one of these detections, which is one of these dots, one of these circles, and we're going to go out 8 kilometers, which is about 5 miles in every direction, and draw a circumference around that. Basically, that's the foraging distance known of an Asian giant hornet, how far they will fly from their nest to find food. And then we just put a grid pattern over that so it tells us how many traps to place and where. All right. The reason that this grid goes all the way over to the east is because there was a detection north in Canada. So that's how we figure out where we're going to place our traps initially. And then if things start to be found more often, then we'll go in and add extra traps. Each year, we start with 800 traps about, and we have ended up with over 900 traps pretty primarily each season. Okay, but it's not just us trapping. We're actually reaching out to citizens in Washington. Fortunately, if you're not in Washington, we ask you to not trap for Asian giant hornets, right? But we ask citizens if they have the time and the resources to grab a bottle and materials in July and hang their traps. And then they're actually checking them and monitoring them each week throughout the month of November. Okay, and citizens help us hang traps in the zone where we've detected them, as well as outside of the area that we don't have our limitations keep us from surveying. So they're helping us prevent any potential spread or predict any populations that may be out there. What these traps look like are on the bottom left. It's a clear plastic bottle with a mixture of rice cooking wine, which is like sweet mirin and orange juice. Essentially, it's a hornet mimosa. Okay, and what that trap does is it gets hung up in a tree. Okay, 6 to 9 feet up, with the idea that if a slight breeze goes by, that hornet smells that scent, gets lured into the trap, drowns and dies. Then we have a detection of a hornet. Well, finding a dead hornet, right, and even confirming one by a picture is good, because now we have a location, and we'll go back to that location and use different means to capture a live hornet. if I have a live hornet, then I can use it to do different things, okay? Does anyone know what I'm gonna do with that live hornet? I am going to attach a radio tag transmitter to it. And then, yep, and then I'm gonna let it go because that hornet's been gone from its nest for a while. She's ready to go home, okay? So she takes that tracker with her, and then we follow the signal to find the nest. This uses the process of telemetry, and it works for about up to 2 miles. Now, essentially, we're walking around the forest with these old cable TV antennas. You point in a direction and hope you hear a clicker of feedback that tracker sends off about every second. As you get closer, it becomes stronger. Okay, once you're in the area that you think there's an Asian giant hornet nest, okay, you might hear them, you might see them, but you're going to kind of look for signals. And this is a video of the first Asian giant hornet nest that was found in the United States, up there in Washington. The hornets were seen entering and leaving in a tree cavity about 8 feet up. Okay. So the next thing we do is we literally just remove it, and we do this kind of as fast as possible. Remember on our timeline what that red danger zone is, what season that is? It's fall, right? So anytime a nest is removed before that fall time, there's no queens, right? So if a nest is taken out, there's no queens moving forward. Now, if a nest is in a tree cavity, right, we're going to actually clog that nest entrance, shove in a modified vacuum, suck out any live hornets, and then we're going to cut that tree down and remove those cells, okay? You can see the picture on the bottom right. Someone's actually standing there netting any hornets that may be returning to the nest and missed. But remember, if it's before the fall time, those are all workers. The workers can't reproduce. The workers are going to eventually die as well. We just want to get rid of them to keep people safe. We don't need hornets flying around, etc. The picture on the bottom left showcases to you how unique each eradication is. That nest was actually about 20 feet up in the tree, so we actually had to rent a boom lift to get up there high enough to knock those hornets out. Okay, these are pictures of the other 3 nests that we removed last year, and you can see the difference in the sizes and the difference in the combs. If we counted every single cell out of these 4 nests, there would be the potential to produce over 2,400 hornets. Last year, none of the cell sizes were queens. So we know that these 3 nests were not able to kick out any queens before we removed them. Workers can't lay. They solely do just the work, as in going to find out the meat to bring it back and help find the stuff to expand the nest, okay? The only thing that lays anything is this founding queen. She lays everything in this nest, as well as the new queens and the males. Then she dies. Okay, the last thing I'm going to talk about, well, 2 things, and then you guys, if there's questions, we'll pause again. So we do a lot of research behind the scenes to try and figure out more data on these hornets to help improve our program, right? And one of the questions is, how else could these hornets harm our insects? We know that they definitely can decimate honeybees, and they have here in the United States in Washington, but what other pollinators or things are they eating? So what we do is we take frass out of those cells. And does anyone know what frass is? It's insect poop. So you can take that and analyze its DNA to figure out what they're eating. The other thing we did is that last nest that was 20 feet up, we stood out there with a big net and caught hornets as they were coming and going. And some of them were actually carrying food pellets. Some of them were carrying things to expand the nest, but others were carrying food pellets. So we could also analyze that DNA to see what they were eating. So if you're an Asian giant hornet over here and you walk into your restaurant of insects, that list over on the left are all the different things you could be eating. You can eat flies, beetles, yellow jackets, wasps, dragonflies, moths, butterflies, and we even found some reminiscence of cow. But I mean, if you've ever had a picnic, you might have had an insect land on your food that you have had to shoo away. Okay, and I do have a link to this blog if you would like to learn more and see the picture in larger. I can put that in the chat for you as well. Last thing I want to talk about before we pause and we just kind of go over some other insects you might see is that sting of an Asian giant hornet. If you're not in Whatcom County, typically do not worry about it. But what happens is when it does sting you, right, it causes neurosis on that skin. So it kind of kills that skin surrounding the sting site. If people are stung once, ice antihistamine and clean that site. If they're allergic, epinephrine and 911. The time it becomes more serious if they're stung multiple times. So same thing, but either seek a healthcare provider. That's it. So before we move forward, if there's any questions, go ahead and unmute yourself, put them in the chat box.
Do the drones or the males, do they look similar to the females?
So they have longer segments on their body, but kind of size-wise, they're comparable. Yeah.
Are they called drones or are they called males?
Interchangeable.
Okay.
All right. So you all know what this is. This is these side-by-sides are going to be real size comparable for you, but we all know that this is a honeybee, so we don't need to talk about it. As beekeepers too, I hope you know what bumblebees are. They're small, black, yellow, and fuzzy. They can be kind of orange. They can be pretty much all black. But let's tell all our friends, if it's hairy, it's not a hornet, right? We know that bumblebees can be super loud, especially in the spring when those queens are out. So a lot of people like to whack them because they're scared if it's an Asian giant hornet. So next spring, tell your friends, if it's hairy, it's not a hornet. We can tell them now too. These are bald-faced hornets, right? You've probably seen them. They're pretty much all black and white, right? So if you see something all black and white, it's a bald-faced hornet. They're found more in kind of the south, but we definitely do have them up here.
Hey, Cassie, I don't think that your
Oh,
screen.
I'm not sharing. Yeah, I paused shared. Okay. If it's hairy, if it's not a hornet, maybe. Here's the bald-faced hornet, black and white. Okay, we'll be all black and white. In this picture, it looks a little bit more creamy, but it's black and white. Okay, great golden digger wasp will start to get called in kind of in later July. People can see them before that. You'll see them on flowers a lot. Sometimes you'll see them digging into the ground. Okay, a couple of distinguishing things here for you. Their legs tend to be orange. Their bodies are a little bit lighter in color and colored in lots of gold hairs. Okay, you look at its abdomen here, it's going to have that black orange tip followed by the orange. So it's missing that striping that the Asian giant hornet has, as well as its face is missing that orange and yellow. Cicada killers are going to be the thing that's most comparable in size. But remember at the very beginning, I said two distinguishing features. The first one was in a big red circle, the width of its head. You can see here how the cicada killers, the width isn't as wide as its body. And then the second thing is that striping. See how the hornet's uniform and lateral across? And the cicada killers, a lot like you'll see on yellow jackets, they have those teardrops, right? And the spots that will differentiate them from the hornets. European hornets, we don't have over here on the West Coast yet. So if we find one, it's just as important as we know. It's going to be the closestly related thing. They're found over on the East Coast and in the southern part of the United States right now. Okay, no uniform and lateral. Their antennae is also different. Horntail wasps get confused a lot because you'll see them flying around and they have something big sticking out of them, okay? And they actually get this, it goes with their nickname. It's used to lay eggs in wood. So that's why their nickname is a wood wasp. And you can see that it's nothing like the stinger of an Asian giant hornet. Yellow jackets, they're your favorite friends. So we don't even need to talk about them. Sawflies, okay. Sawflies tend to have in the middle of their body, instead of having that wasp waist, they have a thick kind of like eyelid that's creamy to yellow in color. In this picture, it doesn't appear to be very yellow and black, but they definitely can be. One of the things here is you'll look at the antennae. They're clubbed, okay. Asian giant hornets are not. Last one here, a paper wasp. People don't typically confuse them. They're a lot smaller and they have a very well-defined wasp waist. If you ever think you see one, you're in Portland, you're in Oregon, you're somewhere around there. If you're on the Washington side, you can let me at the WSDA know. If you're not, take a picture and send it to the Oregon Department of Agriculture and they'll let you know. Okay, that's kind of it for me. I'm going to show you a couple ways to stay connected, right? But So if you want to keep on track of what's going on in the hornet world with WSDA, the best resource is our website, agr.wa.gov/hornets. There's actually a beekeeper tab on there where there's a couple WSU, which is university extension documents that might have some interesting things to you. If you like social media, we run a Facebook group. And the last thing you can do is you can sign up for email alerts. So I send out these Hornet Heralds kind of monthly, bi-weekly. I'm actually going to be sending one out tomorrow. And it's just a PDF that comes to your email with an update of everything going on in the Hornet world. Okay, and to do that, go to our website, scroll down to this stay informed section that you see. That's kind of it from me. My email is down there at the bottom. Feel free to always email me any questions, comments, concerns, and I'll be happy to speak with you. But that is the end of my spiel. So anything else, go ahead and ask away.
Cool. Thank you, Cassie. Who has questions? We'll open it up.
Yeah, I have a question. How quick do you think it'll be before these hornets move to Oregon?
Well, they've only been found in one county of Washington, about 30 miles from the border, as south as they they've fastest going. So for them to fly themselves down to you might take a few years, but let's say someone moves camping gear or something with a mated queen and she finds a good spot to make a nest down there, it could be faster than everyone thinks. One of the good things that your counterparts do down in Oregon is they actually come up to do trainings with us and do place traps along the border. They actually helped us find the first nest last year because they were at a training when we actually tagged and released the hornet and then located the nest.
Wow.
Is the native climate similar to where they're at in Blaine and Whatcom County?
Yeah, it is. So they kind of like subtropic to moderate temperatures. As far as winters go, they survive pretty harsh ones in Asia. A lot of the topography is actually pretty similar too. So yeah.
What can we do as beekeepers to protect our hives?
So I'm not allowed to give out recommendations as far as that goes, but I can tell you that over in Asia, right, they put reducers and things on them, but you know that if you block your bees from coming out, you're not doing any good. A lot of the times it resorts to in that fall time, they will have people standing outside day and nights with tennis rackets, just kind of whacking them if they try to come by. As far as being down in Oregon, the best thing you guys can do is keep a watchful eye, right? Know the signs and symptoms. And when it comes that fall time, if you're starting to lose hives, figure out if it's possibly from mites or whatever, mice. But yeah, I would just, if you see something and you're not sure, take a picture and report it to the Oregon Department of Ag.
Thank you.
Mute.
Cool. Any other questions from people? Awesome. Well, Cassie, I really appreciate it. And yeah, hope to have you on maybe another year, see what the update is. Hopefully it's good news. But yeah. If no one else has any other questions, we can let Cassie go. I kind of thought it'd be fun to keep the Zoom open for a little bit. If people have beginning beekeeping questions, we can just have a little chat too or stuff like that. So I know we're ending early tonight, but yeah, I appreciate everybody joining. Thank you again to Cassie and Jana for presenting tonight. We do have our bees at the apiary, our bee days coming up in 2 weeks. And then we did have an in-person meet and greet 2 or 3 weeks ago, and that was a lot of fun. So I think we'll be doing another one of those in late July, maybe mid-August time too. So thanks everyone. We can end the meeting there, and I'll hang around, and anybody else who wants to, if you want to chat about bees or have any beekeeping questions about the time of the season or what to expect, feel free to hang around. Good question, Diane. Uh, Diana, sorry, asks, are people seeing any honey this year? Does anybody have any thoughts on that?
I have honey in the brood chambers, but I didn't even bother putting supers on. I had lots of queen issues early in the spring, so I'm just struggling to make sure that they stay strong and healthy. So I'm not going to bother with supers for myself.
Yeah, interesting. I think it's really location based. I have hives out in Gresham that are doing phenomenally well. And then my hives in Portland are doing really terrible. It's actually the first year I've ever fed my hives because they're doing so poorly. So I know it's a strange year. Christina asks, is the blackberry really over? Anybody have thoughts on that?
Blackberries are blooming in my part of town really right now. They really just started maybe a week or so ago for me.
Yeah, I think it's location based as well. I actually the blackberries up by me, I live by the Portland airport. They're starting to form already, so we don't have the blooms anymore. But out in Gresham area, they're still blooming like crazy. So yeah, it's crazy. This is a really bizarre year on how things are going. Getting rain today and everything. So Janet, do you want to talk about your queen issues? Is that putting you on the spot?
Oh, no, that's totally fine. I inherited a super strong hive from someone, and the first inspection I did on them, there was probably 12 or 14 swarm cells already capped and ready to roll. So I split them. I did a walk-away split. But unfortunately, I did that right about the time we got like a month solid of rain. So the virgin queen in the split, I saw hatched out cells, but never saw the queen. So I'm guessing she didn't make it on her mating flight or something.
Hmm.
And then the hive that they split from swarmed anyway. So so there was a virgin queen in that hive too, and she never made it either. So then I only have two hives, and so both of them were queenless. I got a brood frame of really young brood from someone and put it in one of the hives. They failed to make a queen from it. Like they didn't even attempt it. And I bought two queens. One is gangbusters and awesome. The other one, nothing. Like she laid a few drone cells, even though she was supposedly mated. That was it. And then the last time I looked at her, she looked like she had deformed wing virus.
Oh, wow.
So I did what I swore I would never kill a queen, but I did because I thought if she truly has deformed wing virus, which I really believe she did because her wings were funky looking.
Really? I've
Yeah,
never seen that. That's crazy.
I know they didn't look like that at the beginning. When I first saw her, she was, they were flat and,
Yeah.
really looked like normal wings. And then the last time I looked at her, they were all like sticking out and scrawny. And, I was like, oh, that's not good. And plus she hasn't laid any eggs. So, there's no point in keeping her. And especially if she is sick, I don't want her to get everyone else sick. So I took her out.
So what's your plan for that hive then?
Well, on the same day that I took her out, I took a frame from my strong hive that had tiny, tiny larvae in it and stuck it in. When I looked about 5 days ago, there were 2 capped queen cells and 3 uncapped queen cells with larvae in it. And then I looked a few days later and the uncapped ones are gone. So the bees got rid of those. And today when I looked, I still have 2 capped queen cells, but I think they should have hatched by now, or not hatched, but emerged by now. So I'm not sure if they're really viable or not. So I don't know. My guess, and I tried combining a swarm with that hive. I mean, like I've tried every trick in the book to get a queen in that hive, and it is just not going. So I don't know. They might be a lost cause. This is my last ditch effort. They make a queen and it mates, or they don't, and it's kind of late in the season for them to do much more.
Yeah.
So it's been a saga.
I had a similar thing. And my queen, when she hatched, didn't start laying for like 4 weeks. And I was like, oh, you guys are queenless for a long time, but I just ignored the problem. And then all of a sudden she was laying one day. So I don't know. Yeah, it's been a really weird year.
Yeah. The queen that I finally took out was in there for 7 weeks.
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy.
And she just laid like, I mean, not even a quarter of a frame of drone brood. So something was wrong with her.
Yeah.
So you always learn something. It's interesting.
Yeah. This is the year to learn too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been crazy.
Learn things I didn't want to learn. Hey, Christina, I don't know that I want to say where I got my queen because I don't want to give the impression.
Keep the good queen from. Why don't you start there?
Oh, well, that's a whole bizarre story. So we were requeening queens out at the apiary, and Glenn from Bridgetown was doing our requeening, and he said that he really doesn't like to kill a queen that's being productive. So we were going to put her in the split because our split didn't have a queen because they had the similar problem in that hive, but they were queenless.
Yeah.
But then we ended up just buying 2 queens from him and putting 2 of his queens in, one in the split and one in the other hive. And so I had already paid for one of the queens the new queens he brought, because I was going to bring it home, but we ended up putting the new queen in the pub hive that I paid for. So then I just swapped out for the one that we took out of the pub hive, that instead of killing her. Does that make sense? It's a really roundabout weird thing. So
Yeah.
but the 2 queens that are out at the pub hives that we got from Glenn they're doing great. They're lots of brood, lots of everything. The queen I got from him didn't do anything, but you know, I don't think it's necessarily his fault or his source, because 2 of the 3 that we got from him were good. 1 wasn't. So I'm sure that's just the way it goes with just like any live thing.
Yeah.
Right. So anyway, that's the roundabout. And I've heard there's some other really good local queen sources too. I've heard that, but I haven't tried anyone other than Glenn's. I got a great nuke from him my first year. They did amazing. So I think I just had a fluky queen. But.
Yeah. Has anybody seen a change in their bees over the last few weeks? I've noticed my bees have become much more testy and aggressive almost in the last few weeks. I didn't know if any of you else had seen that.
Mine are pretty calm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been working mine without a veil or anything up until 2 weeks ago, and then they just lit me up one day.
Oh no.
Super aggressive after that. So yeah. Cool. Anybody else want to chat about anything? All righty. Well.
Hey there. So I know last time we had a presentation about or maybe it was the other group that had a presentation about different plants for pollinators.
Mhm.
And I was wondering, I know that you have to find people to present every time. I wonder if there's a master gardener from the local who could come and talk to us about native plants that would be for pollinators, because a lot of those that were presented were invasive. But it would be really great to hear, from a master gardener what we can do to, especially, fall plants, fall flowers.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. That's a good call out. Jenna and I can look into that. That'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, and I can tell you one resource, Christina, is that if you live in Washington or Multnomah County, and I'm not 100% sure if they're doing it in Clackamas County yet or not, but there's a program that's partnership between Columbia Land Trust and Audubon, that's called the
Yeah, you can get your yard certified.
the native habitat. And they will actually come to you and give you suggestions. And you can just say, hey, my focus is pollinators, what native pollinators, and to last a whole spring through fall. And they can give you a lot of good advice for free. But it wouldn't hurt for us to have like maybe a joint presentation, maybe someone from there and maybe someone from Master Beekeepers.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the trifecta of drought tolerant native fall pollinators.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pretty narrow window right there.
Yes, it is.
But to back up what you guys were saying, yeah, our bees got grumpy in the last week.
Yeah.
Just like standing in the backyard, like one crawled up and stung my partner. Like they're grumpy,
Yeah.
which might mean that they're doing the honey, but maybe not. But
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's lack of resources or what it is right now. So
yeah, we think they're mad at us because we did a shakeout of a laying worker hive.
Interesting. Did you lose the queen, or she just wasn't producing in that?
We had a queen, and I think it's the same thing as Jana. Like there was a month long of rain, and she maybe didn't get to go on a mating flight, or the hive just wasn't having it. I don't know, but it was laying worker, and it's really hard to deal with those. So
Yeah.
we just did the shakeout in front of our other hives, and it worked out. Thankfully.
Yeah.
I think they're grumpy and mad at us.
Yeah.
Did your other hives accept them?
Yeah, and they accepted because there was resources on the other frames, right? There was honey on the frames and some drone brood, but there's also some worker brood and some leftover. We thought, we weren't sure, but we thought there was worker brood. But yeah, they just weren't making a queen. They were just doing the laying worker thing that was super obnoxious.
It gets kind of crazy too when they start doing that.
Yeah, it's really hard. It's really hard to get that to stop.
Yeah. I actually lost a hive this year to that as well.
Yeah, up to 1/4 the hive can start laying.
It's crazy. Absolutely crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, they marched right into we put boards up so they could walk right up into the other hives, and yeah, no problems. We kept our queens. We were worried about losing the queens in the other hives. But we kept our queens and it went okay.
Nice.
Yeah, but in case we run into that problem before, that's what I was asking you, Jenna, about where you got your bees, because queens, because that might be a thing.
Yeah. Something I would like to get going, and I don't know if anyone that's on here has any interest, but I would love to get someone to do like a queen rearing workshop, like in person. I know we had someone doing it on Zoom, but there's nothing like hands-on, you know, so I would love to have someone do a hands-on queen rearing workshop for us.
We should reach out to Portland Metro
Okay,
Queen Club. They do, God, what's his name? Paul, I believe. is the
Stromberg,
president. Yeah, Paul Stromberg. He's the president over there, or vice president. He came and spoke in January, right? And like, I think it'd be fun just to do a joint event. They can even come out to the AP area or something, or we can go to where they do their queen rearing. It'd be kind of interesting. So
yeah.
yeah.
That'd be cool. There's also the TVBA people who have a lot of queen workers, like a lot of people who rear queens.
Oh, okay.
And
That's cool.
one guy, Steve Gomes, he is trying to rear queens that are hygienic, or, you know,
Mhm.
have the trait of rejecting Varroa.
Yeah, maybe a little trifecta. 3 groups together. That'd be kind
Yeah,
of
that'd
fun.
be cool.
Yeah. We should keep that in our back pocket and start talking to them in the next few months and see what they think about that. So
Yeah, thank you. Just a
Yeah.
thought.
Anybody else that's still on here have any ideas for speakers that you'd like to see?
you don't have to go. You don't have to go on video. You can just put it in the
Yeah, you
chat.
can just put it in the chat.
Yeah.
You know, I guess another question that would be good to throw out to the people that are on here. How do people feel about coming to an in-person meeting? I just wanted to kind of get like a sense of the people who are coming to the Zoom meetings. And you can just throw that up on the chat too.
Yeah, we had sent out that poll a few
Mhm.
months ago, and it seemed pretty split 50-50. So I don't know if anybody else has any thoughts on that.
I'd be fine for August, but I'm a high school teacher, so I'm basically a vector.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I wouldn't come because I'd be afraid of getting everyone else sick.
Yeah.
Those of us like me who are immunocompromised really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Someone's asking, is there a chance of an outdoor meeting? Yeah, we could probably figure something out about that. And if we did it in the summer, yeah.
Yeah, even maybe at Green Anchors, they have that large covered area that's
Right.
outdoors, and we'd have to figure out power and everything, but I don't think it'd be too big of a challenge. So
Yeah.
or there's probably some nice other venues we could go to. So
Yeah. I know Tim is willing to host us anytime out there at Green Acres.
yeah, maybe let's chat with him on that.
Yeah.
See what he would say. I think the next one we could possibly do. Let me pull up my little thing. I know we have that 3-person panel, right? In August. Is that when it is?
September.
Oh,
August is Randy Oliver.
yeah. Might be a little much to fly him out for that.
Yeah, we just have to find a way to have technology at the meeting so we could put him up on a screen in person. And I'm not the technology person, so I can't make that happen, but
I don't know if I want to try to make that happen. That sounds like a barrel of monkeys.
yeah,
Yeah.
but maybe September.
Yeah, September. I think we should do another meet and greet. I think that was a lot of fun. Got to meet a lot of people, and yeah, I thought that was actually a lot of fun. Little Lucky Lab. We could even do that outside next time too. Maybe if more people would be more comfortable with that. Cool. Well, I don't want to drag this on if nobody else has any other questions. I just thought that's something that I always feel is missing in a B club meeting, is like a time to chat and ask questions and not feel ashamed about sharing failures and everything. So yeah, thanks everyone for joining. We'll send out emails as the other events come along, and yeah, really appreciate everybody being here. Thanks.
Awesome. Good night, everyone.
Bye.